Buying your first business isn't about how smart you are or how much money you have. It's actually about the psychology you bring to the process. I've helped buyers close 33 million in deals and raise 50 million in funding. And I've watched hundreds of buyers start strong and then fade and never hear from them again. The ones who make it through aren't the luckiest or most connected. They're the ones who understand the mental game in this. And that's what this video is about. Hi, I'm Jon Stoddard from DealFlowSystem.net. If you're serious about buying your first business while working full time or just want to buy your first one, this roadmap will keep you moving when everyone else stalls. All right, I want to start with a story. Marcus, he's composite because a lot of my students don't like to brag about what they've done. So he was a mid-level executive at a logistics company. Smart guy, very disciplined, with plenty of cash saved and a great credit score. Now, he dove into the business buying the way he'd been told. Hit those spreadsheets, those brokers, those calls. But you know what happened? By month 3, his energy was fading. It felt like nothing was working. He shared it to me because we talked often. This is the point where most buyers check out. But instead, Marcus started tracking his weekly activity like a training plan. 5 deals reviewed per week, 3 seller calls, and a Friday wrap up to see what he'd learned. 8 months later, he bought a $1.2 million distribution company. That rhythm, not luck, carried him across the finish line. And the truth is, successful buyers treat the acquisition process like conditioning, working out. You have to build habits in and measure your results, like going your personal best, and then stick to it long enough to see results. So there is this long game curve, understanding the flight path picture before a takeoff. You have this stage 1. You got engines roaring and you're still on the runway right here, right? There's still a lot of planes around. You got people on there. Stage 2, you get through this turbulence, trying to get through this, wind and everything else. And the plane shakes, you're climbing, but it doesn't feel like progress. And you're using 90% of your, fuel to get out of this zone right here. Stage 3, you break through the clouds and everything stabilizes. You've got altitude. That's what buying your first business feels like. Everyone starts with a burst of energy, but you hit turbulence when deals fall through, brokers don't call back, all the deals you look at are unbankable or financing stalls. But if you keep going and reach altitude where your network starts clicking, your pattern recognition starts, like, I know what a good deal is versus a bad deal, pass, 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 and then opportunities start opening. Knowing this curve or the dip exists changes everything for you. Turbulence stops being a crisis and it becomes a sign you're climbing. The discipline you've been building takes over when motivation runs out. Discipline. Jocko Wikilinks talks about discipline all the time. Here's another story. It's like Louise hit the turbulence hard. She was still looking at the spreadsheets, the broker calls, everything by the book. By month 7, she was pretty much ready to quit. What we shifted her focus from perfection to consistency. 5 deals a week, 2 owner calls, and a weekly review. No judgments on the outcome, just a rhythm she could sustain. 6 weeks later, she had an LOI on a very good bankable business. And that single adjustment, switching from perfect to consistent, turned her search all around. And it wasn't about a bigger down payment or better network. It was her mindset and a system. So let's talk about this ownership gauntlet, the 3 stages every buyer walks through. And here's how I explain the psychology now. Stage 1, that's your initial surge. Enthusiasm is high, through the roof. I'm going to own $1 million business, and everything feels possible. And then you have stage 2, the ownership gauntlet. Like, results lag behind effort. This is the mental desert where most buyers quit. And then stage 3, the breakthrough. Discipline compounds. You get better at seeing what's a good deal and a bad deal. Skill accelerates. and deals start to click, like they start coming back around. Somebody that lost an LOI is back on the market. And if you know these stages, you stop taking the slow months personally. You start playing the long game instead of the short one, and you set yourself up for a breakthrough. You don't really have to be great to get started in this business, but you have to get started to be great and keep going. And I'll add, you have to stay started long enough for the process to work. So let me tell you about my first hearing aid deal, the e-commerce business I sold. When I bought my first hearing aid business, I really didn't have a framework yet. I knew I was tired of dabbling. And then the first 3 months, gosh, all enthusiasm. I was just like doing it all by myself. And the next 6 were pretty much frustration. Brokers ghosted me, a lot of deals collapsed or sold out from under me. And my motivation personally was tanked. And this kind of was like built my own system. I set up a number of deals per week. I created a dashboard of seller conversations, and I had a hard rule: no weeks off. But within 90 days of flipping that switch, I found that hearing aid deal, and it became a mid 6-figure exit years later. So looking back, there was nothing genius about it. It was just consistency over time. And that same rhythm is what I now teach, not because it sounds good, but because it works. It takes the randomness out of the search and replaces it with the process you can control. Let's talk about the momentum threshold, the invisible line before the breakthrough. If that ownership gauntlet is the dead zone, the momentum threshold is the invisible line just past it. This is where your discipline has been compounding, but you haven't seen the payout. Think of this as the last 400 meters of a marathon. You're exhausted and questioning everything. I should go back. Have you ever run a marathon before? I haven't, but it's like any long run. Could be a mile run for you. It doesn't matter. You're exhausted and questioning everything. But the finish line is actually closer than you think if you keep going, putting one leg in front of the other. One of my students, Daniel, reached that point after looking at 65 deals and making 3 offers. He felt like he was failing. We added 2 simple tweaks, a weekly debrief, and 1 extra seller email per day. And within 30 days, he got a response from the seller that led to his first acquisition. 1.2 million service company in the Midwest. Now, that's how the thin line can be between it's not working and I bought my first business. All right, let's talk about the one discipline that predicts closing. Just one. After years of watching hundreds of searches, after interviewing 165 business buyers, I can tell there is one discipline that predicts closing better than any other. It's not a formula. It's not a secret network. It's not a big pile of cash. It's weekly deal reviews. Every successful buyer I've worked with has had one unbreakable habit. They consistently review deals week after week. That habit works like compound interest. Every week, your pattern recognition sharpens, and your network deepens, and your odds go up. You're getting better at looking at a good deal, a bankable deal. This one habit alone can turn a stalled deal search into a signed LOI. And remember what Brian Tracy says about this. Successful people are simply those with successful habits. And weekly deal reviews are the habit in this business buying game. So, how do you build your system? There's 4 simple steps. Here's the exact framework I give my coaching students. Number 1, set up a weekly deal target. Like 5 deals a week is enough to build momentum. Start working on seller conversations. Treat them like reps at the gym, 3 calls per week minimum. And track micro wins. Don't just count LOIs. Count emails sent, brokers contact, broker conversations, yeses and nos, and seller replies. And use that feedback loop, like a community, a mentor, or peer group. Get eyes on your pipeline so you're not guessing alone. If you do these four things and you stop relying on motivation, you run on structure instead. And that structure is what carries you across the momentum threshold. I had a story about another student of mine about Sam's 10-month breakthrough. After 10 months, he actually found an e-commerce company. At month 10, he was ready to quit. And what we did is like he doubled down his weekly deal quota, booked 2 extra seller calls, and set up a simple 6-week sprint. And by week 4, he had 2 banks fighting to fund his acquisition. By week 6, he was under LOI. The math of consistency is universal. It's not about luck or timing. It's about reps, feedback, and staying in the game long enough to cross the line. So here are 3 mental reframes to keep you in the game. The 3 shifts that separate the buyers who close from the ones who burn out. Number 1, turbulence or dip actually equals progress. Yep, when it feels messy, it's usually because you're pushing into a new territory. It's new. Number 2, inputs over outcomes. You can't control when a seller says yes, but you can control how many deals you review. The more deals you review, the better your chances. And number 3, curiosity over perfection. Set an example for yourself. Learn, adjust, and iterate. Don't freeze when waiting for the perfect target. These 3 reframes that I just mentioned can take the pressure off outcomes and put it back on the process. The only thing you can actually control. All right, so, one reason people fail is they don't measure. And you know that, right? You've seen that from Intel and everything. If you don't track it, you can't measure it, you can't get better at it, you don't know what you're doing. And without measurement, you're going to drift. So with a scorecard, you can see the truth and adjust. That's why if you go to my website right now, that's why I built the Business Buyer Readiness Score at dealflowsystem.net. It's a quick 5-minute assessment that shows you how ready you are to cross that line to buy in your first business. It's going to highlight your strengths, reveal your blind spots, and gives you a plan to shore them up. And this isn't just theory. It's the same framework that's helped my student close millions in deals. And it's going to give you clarity and momentum instead of doubt and guessing. Okay, let's bring us all together. Buying your first business is actually more psychological than financial. You're going to go through this long game curve, this dip, this runway, this turbulence, and this altitude, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to face the ownership gauntlet and that momentum threshold where you break through. And you can cross them with a simple, repeatable system. Weekly deal reviews, seller conversation, micro wins tracked, feedback loops. Those are the building blocks. There's nothing glamorous about it, but powerful. So you don't have to be extraordinary. And you don't have to get this perfect. You just have to stay consistent long enough for the math to work in your favor. Going back to Tony Robbins, it's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives, but what we do consistently. This is exactly the principle applied to business buying. All right, if this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button right now. And if you're serious about buying your first business, head over to dealflowsystem.net. I can help. Take that business buyer readiness score and get your personalized plan. That's where I show you how to find, fund, and close your first deal the smart way. I'm Jon Stoddard. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.